When we say that economics is a social science, it means we're studying people. That's what social sciences do. There's other social sciences. There's psychology, there's sociology. So economics is a social science. Basically, we're studying how we behave in the marketplace. And there's a lot of different kinds of marketplaces. There's a marketplace for goods, for services, for labor, for borrowed money, so forth. So it's a social science. And since it's a social science, it is difficult sometimes to really develop good, hard laws or principles because we're dealing with people and we can't put the consumer in a test tube and perform experiments and see how he behaves. So we gather, we do a lot of observation, we gather a lot of data, and sometimes we have to make assumptions to try to develop basic principles of economics through a combination of both inductive and deductive reasoning, and we'll talk about those concepts later on. But it's a social science, and studies how either people or a society. So when we're studying people or individual firms, that's sometimes referred to as microeconomics, and when we're looking at the whole society or economy or nation, that's macroeconomics. You'll see these terms a lot, micro and macro. It has to do with the narrow versus the broad perspective. And so we're studying the allocation of scarce resources. Now, when you use the word allocation, that means a resource can be used for A, B, or C. So there have to be choices made. And choice is a major consideration in economics. How do we choose? And a lot of times we make choices on the basis of price. And price can be expressed there are many terms to use to express price for different purposes. If we're talking about, buying something in the grocery store, well, the price is published. If we're talking about maybe renting an apartment, well, price there will be expressed in terms of rent. How much do you pay to rent the apartment for a month or a year, whatever the situation is? If you're wanting to borrow money, the price of borrowed money is called an interest rate. So you get the idea. The term price can take on different forms and may have different terms, but all of it has to do with the terms or rate of exchange between buyer and seller, borrower and lender, landlord and tenant, whatever the opposing parties happen to be. And when we say scarce resources, this is another basic issue in economics, the idea of scarcity. We're having to make choice among scarcities, that no matter how rich and abundant a society or a people may become, there's always a limitation of resources. And we're finding that today in our development of battery-powered cars. We need special ingredients, special resources to develop the batteries and so forth. And so we're always dealing with the problem of scarcity. And these resources have alternative uses. Land is a resource. Well, you can use land to put crops on it, or you can use land to build houses. So what will decide how we use this land? Is it going to be to mine minerals? Is it going to be used for agricultural purposes? Is it going to be used for a cow pasture? Resources have alternative uses, and how do we make these choices? Again, the idea of a choice. And competing ends, and I've just referred to the competing ends. There's different things that can be done with the resource. To produce goods and services, and basically goods refer to tangible items, services refer to intangible items. The goods you find in Home Depot or Target or other stores. Services are provided usually by businesses or professions, medical services, legal services, accounting services, so forth, to satisfy human wants and needs. Now, from an economic point of view, we don't really make judgments regarding wants and needs. Maybe your want is my need or vice versa. We can question sometimes the so-called wants or needs that people have. Today, for example, a lot of people like tattoos. It is possible to go completely through life without ever having a tattoo. That is possible. But if you go to the stores where you can see people who have their arms and legs covered with tattoos, well, for some reason, this was a want or need that they had to have filled. And interestingly enough, when there's a want or need, there's very often some source of supply that will make that available. So wants and needs are two terms used interchangeably, maybe, and there are some things that are absolute needs. For example, water. Life cannot exist without water or air. But beyond water, air, and food, there's a broad range there of wants and needs, and even foods can have different characteristics. Do you really need that soda pop, or wouldn't a glass of water do just as well? Again, you get the idea. Wants and needs. Economics. Economics tries to be an objective science of what is or tends to be, not a normative science of what ought to be. Now, that doesn't mean that economists don't opine as to what ought to be, but when we do that, and I do it, and I'll share my opinions from time to time, we're doing so as philosophers, not as scientists. As a scientist, we don't make value judgments. It's almost impossible to have an objective answer to a value question. Intelligent people can eventually agree upon what is fact, but they may never agree upon value judgments, and so that's part of the source of controversy in economics. There's a wide range of opinion regarding what economic policy should be, whether or not the Federal Reserve should raise or lower interest rates, and so forth. Well, because economics is a study of human behavior, and human behavior is unpredictable, it makes economics a challenging discipline. I find it fascinating. I find it interesting. There is an approach that's used in economics which is very mathematical, called econometrics. And in today's world, with very sophisticated computers and the knowledge that we have developed over a period of time, and the data that we have developed, economic mathematical models are very sophisticated and very complex and very impressive, and are very helpful. I will not be using a lot of math in my presentations. We'll be referring to some numbers. In fact, before the day is out today, we will do that. But I will make reference to sometimes to things that maybe the econometric models have revealed. But as far as going into elaborate discussions and presentations, no, that's outside the scope. I'm a believer in the preservation of verbal expression in economics. I think we can learn a lot just by using discussion and English to describe what we want here. But obviously, down through the years, there's a lot of jokes about economists. Economists were invented to make the weatherman look good. Well, that's okay. I hope the weatherman is doing better. Or if you lay all economists end to end, they reach no conclusion. Well, that's not hard to figure out. You can watch television almost any night and find opposing points of view on this. I guess one of the classic ones was President Harry Truman said he was looking for a one-armed economist, that all the economists he knows says, well, on the one hand this, but on the other hand that. And this is true, because the one hand and the other hand, we are using different assumptions. If we're trying to, say, project what will happen over the next 6 or 12 months, well, as we look at the world today, it's going to depend upon what kind of trade agreements are finally resolved with various nations. I'm recording this on June 30th, 2025, so there's a lot of unknowns yet. Congress hasn't passed its budget. Trade negotiations are still underway. We still don't know what the outcome of some of the conflicts will be between Russia and Ukraine, and Israel and Iran. Right now, there's a truce between Israel and Iran. How long that will happen, I don't know. But when you're making projections, you have to make, sometimes in economics, then you have to make assumptions. Well, assuming this, then what will be forthcoming? Well, obviously, then sometimes your economic projections are no better than the assumptions that you make. So these are the dilemmas, but hopefully we'll have some fun sharing them and discussing them and reviewing them, and that will be the thrust of our approach here. A positive approach, not doom and gloom. If you want doom and gloom, I'm not your person. I'm the optimistic economist, and we'll try to approach it from a positive but realistic point of view. Okay, let's look at something that is timely and will be today's economic insight, and that will be data and the source of some data. You've probably heard Federal Reserve Chairman Powell speak repeatedly about their decision-making process, and that it's data-driven, data-dependent. And the two main items of data that they look at, or that they refer to frequently, are prices and unemployment. And so today we're going to look at a place where you can look, where you on your own can get data on prices and employment, and that is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics. A lot of data are generated by the U.S. Department of Labor, specifically the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and so this is a good starting point in our discovery process of some economic tools and insights that we can look at.